Thank you, Hannah. So we will move now to Stefania Simou, who is working at the European Medicine Agency. And Stefania will provide a live demonstration of the reward data catalog and will show you the various functionalities, such as how to submit a record, how to edit a record, how to search for a record, and where to go for support and guidance. And please get your Slido app ready at the end of the presentation, as we will ask you a few questions about discovering new data sources. So Stefania, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Patrice, and good morning, everyone. So before starting with the catalog demonstration, and in order to help us improve data discoverability and research transparency, I would like to invite all data source holders whose data sources are not yet in the catalog to make a submission for their data source. So how can you do this? How can you submit a new data source in the catalog? So the first step is to create a new login account if you don't already have one. If you have one, you can use that one. Second step is to log in to the catalog with your new EU login account, and you will automatically have access with editor rights. Then you can simply go to the relevant section, click add a new data source, complete the form, and submit it. And that process you would also follow if you wanted to submit a study or an institution and network. Now, if you already have a record in the catalog, there is one more step that you need to complete. We have contacted all people that have already records in the catalog to complete an EU survey to claim the records. So once you complete the survey and you log into the catalog, then we will be able to assign the records to your account. After that, you will be able to access them, edit them, resubmit them, etc. So to get access to your records, you should complete both steps, fill in the survey and log into the catalog. We monitor this on a daily basis, so once you log in, we will assign the records you have claimed within the same or the next day. Next slide, please. Okay, so here you can see summarized the workflow describing how a record can be generated by users. Later on, we will also demonstrate that in the actual environment. So in order to create and manage any kind of content, as we said, a user will need to have an EU login account. Then once you log in as an editor, you can create a record, which can be a data source, a study, an institution, or network, and either save it as a draft or submit it directly. Once you submit it, EMA will then review the record and either return it to ask for modifications or publish it in the catalog. If a record is returned, the user can make changes and submit it again. EMA again will review it, validate it, and either publish it or return it back to you for further changes. The same flow is also followed when you want to submit any updates to existing records. In certain cases, EMA might decide to unpublish a record and either return it to user to make necessary changes or delete it. Also, the approval rejection of data will trigger email notifications to the user submitting data. Also, there will be notifications that will prompt you to update your records on a regular basis. And now I will move to the catalog demonstration. So let me share my screen. Okay, sir. Okay, so now you should be able to see my screen. So this is the landing page. Sorry, just give me. Okay, so this is the landing page of the catalog. And anyone can access it without having to log in. So now we will first look at the catalog just by any people that can access it. So at the beginning, you have some useful information and some useful links. So for example, here you have the link to create the EU login account, or you have the link to complete the survey I mentioned to claim your existing records, and some further information as well that can be helpful. And if we scroll down, we see the 4 different sections of the catalog. So we see the studies, the data sources, the institutions, and the networks. And by clicking to each one of them, you can navigate to the relevant sections. But you can also navigate to them through this blue bar at the top, so you don't need to scroll all the way down, but you can click here to go to the different sections. Before going to each one of them, I wanted to show you the support page. So here you can also find some useful information and links. So for example, you can find the good practice guide that we have published on how to use the catalog. Also, you can find the published metadata list based on which the catalog has been built. And you can find also the link to the NSEP website, which has also been rebuilt. And below, there is a list of frequently asked questions and answers. So if you have any questions, this would be the first place you can go to and see whether you can find the answer. If not, of course, you can contact us. So now I will start with the data sources. So when you click, it takes you to this page, which is similar for all the other sections of the catalog. And here at the beginning, you have some information on the data sources. And you have this button. So if we go here, it will take me to the whole list of the data sources that are currently in the catalog. So we can see that at the moment we have 196 data sources. And here we can see that all of the data sources are listed and some basic information of them are displayed, like, for example, the countries of the data source, when they were first published in our catalog, and then when they were last updated. And also you have these boxes which show the type of the data source. So, for example, this first record, it has hospital inpatient records, hospital outpatient visit records, and primary care medical records. You can also open each of these results and view them in a separate page. Also, as we can see, the results are now sorted by default by newest first, but you can also change that to sort them by alphabetical order, reverse order, etc. You can also click on this button and export all these data sources, so all the 196 data sources with all their data in an Excel file. You can save it and you can analyze it, search what you're looking for, etc. Also, here at the top, we have the search bar. So if we type anything here, it will look into all these records and all their content, and it will return back the results. However, you can further, if you know what you're looking for exactly, you can further refine it using these filters on the left. So, for example, you can refine the search by data source country or region, by data source type, or look for a specific data holder. So now, for just to showcase to you, I will look for records that are related to hemophilia. So if I search here, it searches through the whole content of the data sources and it returns back me 5 results. And let's say that I want to find only the data sources that are in France. I could put it here, apply the filter, and then see if I get any records. And it did, I get back 3 records. And for the demo, I will open one of them to show it to you. So that's the page that you see when you open any data source. So at the top, you have the information that we could also see in the search page. You also have this blue button here, which says download as PDF, which by clicking to it, you can download a PDF with all the data and save it for your own record or for reviewing it offline. The data sources pages have 4 different tabs that you can see them here. And also each tab has this gray box, which shows the different sections of the specific tab. And the first tab is administrative details. So what can we find here? So here we can find information like the data source ID, which is the ID generated by the catalog when you enter a data source. You can see the name, the acronym, the data source type, care setting, etc. But we can also see the data holder. And here you will notice that the letters are different. And when you scroll at the top of this, you can see that it's actually a hyperlink. And what this means is that this institution has a record in the catalog. And if you click on it, you can open that record and review it separately. So if we go, it's here. So if we can open it and review it, but we can do that later. Going back to the data source, If we scroll down, we can find other information like the website, countries, languages. We can see the publications that are related to this data source, and these are also hyperlinks. So if you click on them, it will take you to the page of the publication and you can review it. And also you see this section which is called studies. So here you can find a list of all the studies that are recorded in the catalog that have been conducted using this specific data source. And as you can see, these are also hyperlinks. So I can open this study and review the data and its information. Going back to the data source, let's go to the second tab, which has information that, as my colleague Anna said, on what data this data source is collecting. And here you can find information like, for example, if the data source is collecting information on specific disease details. And here we can see, for example, that is listed hemophilia, von Willebrand, etc. And here is a good example on how the search works. So we can see that the title, Franz Quack, did not contain hemophilia. But because the data holder has entered hemophilia here as a disease, then the search could pick up this record and return it in the results. What other information we can see? We can see, for example, that this data source is collecting information on pregnancy and neonates, is also collecting information on cause of death. So cause of death is captured in this data source. And the vocabulary used to capture this data source is ICD-10, but also free text. Similar-wise, you can find information on other fields like procedures, clinical measurements, so a lot of information, genetic data, biomarker, etc. At the end, I think we have also the socio-demographic, like age, gender, ethnicity, etc. What I forgot to mention is that here at the bottom, you have this sharing function. So by using these hyperlinks, you can share this data source record either on social media, but also by email with your colleagues if you wish to. Going to the next tab, we have the quantitative data. So here you can find information, for example, on population. So here we can say that this data source is collecting information on all populations. And there is some description on the population, percentages. We have the population size, population active size. Here we also have the population size and active size split by the different age groups. And at the end, we have also the median observation time for the total population, but also for the active individuals. And now going to the last tab, we have the data flows and management. So here we have information on the governance of the data source, whether we can access subject details. So here, yes, we can access them. A description on what triggers the registration of a person in the data source. So here we know that disease diagnosis is triggering the registration of a person, what triggers the deregistration or the creation of a record, etc. And here we also have this section, which is called data source linkage. So what this section shows is whether this data source has been created by the linkage of other data sources, or it can be linked with other data sources. So here we can see that, yes, this data source is linkable or is already linked. And here we have a description for both options. So we know that both this data source is already created by the linkage of other data sources, but it can also potentially be linked further with other data sources. And below, the data holder has further described its linkage. So for example, we can see that Franz Quag is already linked, because pre-linked is equal to yes, with the data source CEPI-DC. And this has been done with deterministic linkage using this variable, and their linkage completeness is 100% complete. Also, we know that France Coag is not linked, but can be linked with the data source CRMW, and it can be linked probabilistically, again with the same ID, and it would have a completeness rate of 80%. Similar-wise, it can potentially be linked, but is not already linked with SNDS, and again, it can be linked deterministically with these variables, and it would have 100% completeness. Below we have some data management information, like for example, how often the data source is refreshed or for how long the records are preserved. So here we can see they're preserved for 20 years, and when was the last date that it was refreshed. And the last section is whether the data source has been converted to a common data model. And here we can see that this data source has not yet been converted to any CDM. And that's the end of the data sources page. I will now go to the studies, which has a very similar page in the beginning, but here also you can find some very useful information. So if you're wondering whether your study is suitable to be included in the catalog, here you can find the conditions. So if it follows this condition, then you can submit it. And if I click here in the similar box, it will take me again to all the records that we have on studies. And as you can see, we have 2,766 studies. The structure is very similar. So the records are sorted from newest first to oldest. You can export again all the results. You can search all the content. You have filters here to refine your search on the left. And here we can see that the filters are more extensive. So we have country, data source type, scope, study topic, etc. And this search bar, you can use it to search for everything. So you can use it to search for a specific disease, you can use to search for a specific ATC, brand name, or active substance. So for example, we can search for COVID-19 vaccines to see what the search will return. So we see now we have 165 results. So it's quite a lot. So in this case, we could download the data and review them outside of the catalog. Or if we know what exactly we're looking for, we can try to further refine the search, so to tighten the results that we get. So for example, if I am looking only to studies that look into safety, I could filter here for it, and then apply the filter and see if I would get less results. So here you see I have only 9 results now. So I could also try to search, now I will clear the filters. And when I clear the filters, you can see that now I don't have this button here. So when this happens, it means that now if I search anything, it will search through the whole content of the catalog. If I want to search only for studies, then I click here and I can apply the filter. Okay, so now I get exactly the same results. So now let's try to search by a specific brand name. So let's say that I want to find all studies that they have reported Comirnaty. I could search here for the drug name. And I get back 7 results. So I can open each one of them and see what the studies are about, their data, their results, etc. Or I could search by a medical condition. Let's say we can search for myeloma. Okay, so now I get 29 results. So these are quite a lot. So hypothetically, let's say we're looking into studies that have been conducted in the Netherlands. And apply this filter. Now I get only 6 results, and I could further refine the search. Let's see what we have here. So I could also search to find for studies that have been conducted by the Darwin EU network. So if I set this to yes, then it would only show me the studies that are done by the network. So I have one study here, and I can open it to have a look at it. So here, this is the page of the studies. Again, you have similar functionalities with the data sources. You can download the record as a PDF and save it. And you can see that you have here 3 different tabs. You also have, again, the gray box, which can navigate you through the different sections of the tab. Similar to what my colleague Anna said, you can find the information that she presented, like name, acronym, country, study description. You can find the list of all the institutions and networks that participate in the study. And here, it's interesting to see that these display like in the search functionality, because as we can see, these are hyperlinks. And this means that there is a record for these institutions in the catalog. So if I open them, I'm able to go to the institution record and review it, but we will do that later. So all these are institution records that can be found in the catalog. But here at the end, I see this box that is not a hyperlink. That's because these institutions are entered as free text. So probably because when the study was submitted in the catalog, there was no record in the catalog for these institutions, so they had to enter them as free text. Also, the network that we can see is also a hyperlink, so I could also go to that record to view the information of Darwin network. Below, we can see the contact people, so we have the main contact, we have the primary lead investigator, we have the study timeline, similar to what you were used to in the EU Pass register. We have the sources of funding, and now you have also the protocols. And as you can see, we have 2 versions. We have the initial, but also we have the latest version. So you can always have 2 documents. So if your protocol is updated, you can upload the latest version, but you cannot upload a series of all the protocols, just the first one and the latest one. Going now to the second tab, it's the methodological aspects. So here you have information like study types, study design, etc. So here we can see it's a non-interventional study that is looking into disease epidemiology. It's a cohort that is looking into these age groups, so basically all age groups, we could say. And you have information on the objectives, outcomes, analysis plan, the results, some documents that the user has entered, which you can open them and download them and read them at your own time. And similar-wise, you can share the page with anyone. And going to the last page, we have the data management. And here you can see information on whether the study has applied and has been granted the NSAP seal, which data sources have been used to conduct the study. And here, similar-wise to the first page, we can see that the first 3 data sources are hyperlinks. And this means that these data sources exist in the catalog and they have been linked to the study, so I can open them. Look at the data source, look what information it collects, look what other studies have been conducted with the same data source, make comparisons, etc. However, we can see these data sources are not linked. So it means that when the study was entered, these data sources did not exist in the catalog. So the user had to enter them as free text, which is unfortunate because then it cannot be linked with what we have in the catalog. So we encourage users to, if something is not in the catalog, to create it so that it can be linked, so that, that we can facilitate this interlinking and aggregation of information for review. And finally, at the bottom, you have this new section which did not exist in EU Pass Register. So by default, this section for all studies has been set to unknown, but from now on we will collect this data, so it will hopefully be populated. But for now, you can, for all of them, you can see that the common data model section is set to no, and the data quality and data characterization is not filled. And that's the end of the studies page. Very quickly, I will go through the institutions and networks, but I'm not going to focus on them because it's not the purpose of the catalog. They're supposed to be support pages for the data sources and studies, but they work very similar with what I've shown you. So you can look all the records, you can filter and search, you can download the data, you can open and view them. And the same happens also with the networks. You can see all networks, you can filter, download, etc. So just as an example, when I was reviewing the study, I opened the IQVIA record. So let's see what you can find here. You can find the institution countries, the type of the institution, the role in the catalog, the institution website, some short description, some contact points, and below you can see whether this institution is participating in any network, and here we can see there is one. You can see all the data sources in the catalog that are owned by this institution, and you can open them. As you can see, all of them are hyperlinks. You can open them and review them. And at the end, you see all the studies that are conducted by this institution in the catalog, that are present in the catalog. So you can also open all these ones and review them. Similar-wise, it's working for the network. So before I open the Darwin network, again, you can download it as a PDF, you can navigate in the page, you have the name, acronym, website, contact people, you have the institutions that are part of the network, and you also have the studies that are linked to this network in the catalog. You can open all of them, they're hyperlinks. Similarly, you can share the page in social media or by email, etc. And that is what any user can view just by accessing the catalog through the web. But you can also decide to submit data, and you would have to log in. So for logging in, as we said, you need to create an EU login account. And when you log in, it takes you to your dashboard. And I will go to this later, but first I will show you how you can submit a data source, a study, an institution, or a network. So when you come here, you see this blue button which says Add Content. And that's one way that you can enter a data source. So if I click here, you can select what you want to enter. So for now, for this purpose, we will try to enter a data source. And it will take you to the form that you have to complete. That is one way, but there is also a second way to enter it. So if I was in the data sources section, what I was showing you before, now that I'm logged in, I can see that this white box has appeared, which says Add a data source. And if you click on it, it takes you again to the same form that I opened previously. So let's try to enter it. So at the beginning, you have some useful information to complete the data, and below the form starts. So similar to the view page, you also have here the 4 steps. And you need to go through all these steps to submit the form. And here we have 2 types of data. We have the fields that are free text, like the data source name, but we also have fields that take a value from a drop-down list. And for them, there can be 2 options. You can only select one value, but there are also fields that you're able to select multiple values. What else we can see is that below most of the fields, there is a help text. And that is some useful information that will help you to understand what information you need to complete in the field. Also, as you notice, some of the fields have this red asterisk. And this means that these fields are mandatory. And they're mandatory in order to proceed to the next step. So you will need to complete all these mandatory fields to go to step 2, 3, 4, etc. But also to finally submit and save the record. So all this we need to complete. So let's try to enter some fake data just to proceed to the next step. Data source demo. And here in the data holder, we see that there is a drop-down list. And here there is a drop-down list of all the institutions that are present in the catalog. So we can search and find what we are looking for. So let's select this one. But if you cannot find your institution here, it's because it doesn't exist. And in that case, you would first need to create a record for your institution. It would have to be approved by us and published, and then you will be able to see it here and select it. Until then, you won't be able to proceed because you wouldn't have the data holder. So that's the first step you need to do, is to add the institution in the catalog, as it is also stated in this help text. Then let's select a data source type because it's mandatory. Here you can add the website, and wherever there is a link, you're also able to provide a display text, like what you want the link to show when people click to it. It can be anything, something easy and catchy usually is preferred. Then you would need to enter at least one contact person, so I will enter me. And you can also add an alternate contact, but you can enter up to 2 contacts, no more. So if you would click here, it would create a new section. In data source countries, again, it's a drop-down list of all the countries. So let's find one country. And here we can see that I can add more countries. Similar-wise, here in the languages, I need to enter something because it's mandatory. The rest I don't need to complete now. Publications, again, here you can enter the DOI or the URL, but in order to make it prettier, you can also enter a display text. And once you enter it, if you have more publications, you can click add another link, and you can enter more publications. Then once you complete all the mandatory information or all the information that you have, you can click next to go to the next tab. And here we can see the information on the data that the data source is collecting. And here we can see that all fields by default are set to no. So if your data source, for example, is collecting information on rare diseases, you would change this to yes. Or if your data source is collecting information on dispensing of medicines, you would change it to captured. And now that I have changed it, you see that it's opening a new field. So it prompts me to enter the vocabulary that is used for dispensing. And by clicking here, there is a drop-down list. So if my vocabulary can be found here, let's say is ATC, I can select it. But if another vocabulary is used as well, I can select that one as well. And if I cannot find what I'm looking for, I can select other. And once I select other, this new field appears where it prompts me to enter this vocabulary that you could not find. So we can enter something. It's not mandatory, but if you have it, it's always good to enter it instead of having just other. And similar-wise, all the other fields can be entered. Some of them will prompt you to enter more information, but as you can see, none of them are mandatory. So by scrolling down, I can navigate to the next page, which is the quantitative information. And here you can see you can add age group. So let's say, let's pick a few just for the sake of completing it. And then you can enter the size. It can be only numeric, so you can only enter numbers. If I try to enter text, it doesn't do anything. You can also enter here the size by age group. So here it will ask you to select an age group, and then you can complete the size, and you can complete only one if you have it, and you can keep entering information if you have them. And again, I can navigate to the next page to reach the end. And here you have the data management information. None of them are mandatory, so I will not complete them. One thing I wanted to show you is the data source linkage. So if the data source is linked with another data source, I can complete it here. So I change it to yes. I can put here some description, and then I can provide more information for the specific linked data source. So just as an example to show you, if my data source is already created by the linkage with another data source, I would put here, yes, so it's pre-linked, and I will try to find it here. So let's say my data source that is already linked is CPRD. It's already in the catalog, so I can find it here. But if it was not this one, or if I could not find it, then I would click Other, I would select Other data source, and I would enter it here. So test data source, let's say A. And then I could enter the linkage strategy, linkage variable, completeness, whatever information I have. And then if there is more linkage with another data source, I can enter a new section and add again the information and keep doing this to enter information for all the linked data sources I have. And then we have the data management information. I'm not going to go through now in detail because we don't have. Here at the end, you have the common data model mapping, which again, it's a similar section to fill like the linked data sources. So if you click yes, then you can add the conversion to a common data model. And for example, here, if I know my data source is converted to OMOP, I can enter it here. If I cannot find my data model here, then I could click other CDM and enter it here. And again, fill the relevant information. And I think now we are at the end. So here you have two options. You can either save it as a draft, and that would mean that you can return to it at a later stage, complete the rest of the information, and then when you're ready, you can submit it, or you can submit it directly. So for now, I will click submit it. And also here you have this revision log. So here you can enter any information that you want for you, just for your reference. So for example, you can enter new data source, add it, and save it. So now by doing this, it means you're sending it to EMA for validation. And if I go to my dashboard, I will be able to see it now. So here it's the top one, test data source demo. I created it now. It's not published, but it has been submitted to EMA. And now if I click edit here, it tells me this. So I cannot edit it because I sent it to EMA. So I will be able to edit it once it is approved by EMA or if EMA sends it back to me. And here we can see the dashboard. So here we have all the content that the user can have. And at the top, you have your collaboration requests. So let me remind you what my colleague told you before. So now you're able to share ownership of a record. So another user can share a record with you, and then you're able both to edit it, to submit it, to make any changes, etc. And that is very useful because you can share the workload with other people. So my colleague has sent me a record to share it with me, which I have declined now, but I can click accept, so the status changes, and that way you can accept the record and you're able to change it, edit it, send it for submission, etc. And below, I can see all the records that I have created in general, that I have submitted, that have been published, returned, etc. Now there are quite a few, but if you have a lot, it's useful to know that you can sort them by type, you can sort them by date, by publication status, moderation state, etc. And here you can see, for example, that these ones are submitted, which means that they have been sent to EMA. These ones are draft, which means I can open them and further work on them and then submit them to the catalog. But also a record has been returned to me by EMA. And by opening it, we can see why it has been returned. So it means I need to do some further changes. So by editing, I can again go through all the steps, change the data and resubmit it. But here at the top, I have this section, which is called revisions. So here there is a log of all the changes that have been performed to this record. So I can say that firstly, I entered the record on 1st of March and I had added a note to myself, new data source added. Then probably I did a small change again and submitted to EMA. And then I see that the same day, the record has been returned to me and they have put this information. So please provide information on the main financial support and care setting field. So EMA is asking me to complete these two fields and resubmit it. So then I can edit it and resubmit it, and again, it will follow the same flow. One more thing I want to show you is the co-author. So by going here to this section, you can add an email address of another user and submit it. So this way you send the authorship to, not you send the authorship, you share the authorship with another person, and the other person will be able to amend this record as well. And once you do this, it will go to the other person's dashboard here, as I showed you. And then the other person can accept it and make changes if they wish. And I think this is the end of my demonstration.